Chair Ted Hill, District 14, that's Eagle and Emmett. The United States Supreme Court clearly holds the compelled speech offends the United States Constitution and the First Amendment. Government players across this state and across the country have been inconsistent and not vigilant in defending citizens from compelled speech. As of recent, there's been significant pressure locally on teachers, government officials, and law officers about recognizing certain gender and gender pronouns with fear of reprisal or even firing. This bill here protects people of Idaho with law that prohibits any government entity in the state from compelling any public employee to use preferred personal titles, greetings, or pronouns that do not correspond with the biological sex of the individual seeking such title or pronoun. Such protection is essential to ensure that the constitutional right to free speech of every person in the state is protected. This will not change the impact. Individuals can continue with their genders, they continue with their gender pronouns and their identities and titles, and that can be respected, acknowledged, but it will not be compelled or forced to recognize, and that's what this protection will do. Fundamentally, bottom line on this is all about First Amendment rights. Compelled speech from government that has any compelled speech is contrary to our First Amendment rights and contrary to the Constitution. A couple examples I want to talk about and trying to get someone to come forward and testify. Teachers were fearful to come forward. They felt threatened. I call it an ideological inquisition, essentially, that's out there. They will not come forward and testify. They don't have legal protection, and every single teacher said, no, I'm not going to do that. They're not really sure where this pressure comes from. You talk to them, the counselor says, you better do this, you better monitor, you better do what these kids say, you better follow these genders, or you'll be penalized, or you'll be fired. Then you try to find, where's that policy written? So there's this culture across, where is it? I found one place in CUNA where it was actually documented, but it's this culture of fear and essentially a bullying culture that you must submit to this. And that's why this legislation will actually close this down. I'll read what one CUNA High teacher said. Never in my wildest dreams would I imagine having a teenager dictate my speech. It has gotten to the point that as a teacher, we have to be so careful about what we say, as we're always in fear of losing our jobs if we say the wrong word. This fear is ideological. It's bullying in reverse. It's a bullying thing, especially across the teacher sphere. To show you how effective this is, the Michigan House passed a bill here last year that said using the wrong pronoun is a felony and a fine for $10,000. A felony and $10,000 fine for compelled speech contrary to the First Amendment. I was shocked. It did not go past the House, but I looked it up. Vehicular manslaughter in the same state is $10,000. So see how this perspective, this inquisition, how out of touch this is, how you can kill somebody in a car, it's $10,000 fine. Use the wrong pronoun, it's $10,000 fine. Yeah, there's a little disparity here. Also in New York, where students actually can confidentially change their name and gender, and the parents don't need to know, or they aren't allowed to know. And that's in that state, if a teacher uses the wrong pronoun, that is fined by civil damages up to $250,000. Again, vehicular manslaughter in New York is $15,000. So you see the pressure across our society and culture. This compelled speech has incrementally impacted us, and everyone's being influenced by it. As of last year, 24 states have come up with legislation to address this. There's precedents across the country. 10 states specifically align with us, and you will not be forced to contrary to biological sex. Bottom line, fundamentally, this is a line in the sand. This is a battle for First Amendment rights. Government entities of any compelled speech required by any government entity is contrary to our First Amendment rights in the Constitution.